cannot tell a lie. I am really tired. It is late Sunday night and I am wanting to go to bed. But this is my journey back to wellness, and sometimes we have to just lean forward and do things even when we don't want to do it. Whether it's getting up to exercise, go for a walk, eat the healthy food, or sometimes make a video. I'm making this video even though for an entire week I have been truly thinking about a very different topic. Last week I was inspired at church. I wanted to speak sincerely about my faith journey, and I'm hoping it reaches someone at home. It's a controversial thing, a little risky for me to discuss, because we all have opinions about faith. Many different people, some of my deeply religious friends throughout the week, without knowing, I've been thinking about making a YouTube video on this topic, mentioned things to me that somewhat reinforced my need to speak on this. And then my manager at work, who is not necessarily religious, but deeply spiritual, mentioned some things, and we had a very deep conversation, and I told her I actually was thinking about doing a video on my faith, and she encouraged me to do it. And then, of course, the shootings happened, which pressed heavy on my heart and really wanted me to talk about this book that I wrote in memory of my dad. Probably mentioned at least once in prior videos. But this morning, I woke up to the news. I believe it was in People magazine that actually reached me via email first. Today is also the anniversary of Princess Diana's tragic car accident. And it would not be right for me to take the time to make a video without addressing the anniversary of that tragic day. And I don't want to sound glib about it by making it seem like I have any authority to be speaking on behalf of the princess or any of her loved ones. But I'm speaking about it again from my personal perspective, because I remember that day, like most of us who were old enough to be aware of worldly events. I had been living in Boston, chose to meet up with some old friends of mine from Dallas, and we were going on a scuba weekend. Before I left, I had given the typed manuscript to hung jury to a dear friend of mine who I had somewhat just met, but very, very sweet young man at the time. We were all young back then. Very hardworking. I think he was listed in 40 under 40 successful business people. But he also happened to know someone who worked, I believe, at Random House, and agreed to take my manuscript to her. His name was Howard, her name is Hillary, and they are mentioned in my book. And I'm mentioning all of this because one of the reasons I may never forget, not just because after dinner with my scuba group, we were at a restaurant, and as we were leaving, we made our way into the lounge. There was a TV, and the news was on, and it caught our attention and stunned all of us, because it's just one of those things none of us ever expect to hear. But it also stunned me because, as I mentioned in this book, which was published in 2008, this is my only copy. It's a little dog-eared and has all kinds of history to it. But I had given the typed manuscript to Howard to give to his friend, Hillary, and the original introduction, as I put in this book in 2008, the original introduction, the dedication rather, the original dedication to the book was to Princess Diana, Mother Teresa, and Gianni Versace for striving to make the world a more beautiful place, each with their unique talents and in their own way. I gave the entire printed manuscript with its dedication page to my friend Howard Hall, who hand-delivered it to his friend Hillary Moskin, who worked at Random House. Howard and Hillary were spending the long weekend in the Hamptons. I was spending the long weekend in Florida. We were all stunned. But as history now can show us, Mother Teresa and Gianni Versace all died within weeks, I think, of one another. Coincidence, I'm sure. But as a young person who dedicated a book that I wrote as an undergrad to raise awareness to the lack of victims' rights, it hit me hard. And we know that so much in the world has also been revealed as we can look back in history. In my previous video, I also mentioned 2 years later, we lost John Kennedy Jr., equally shocking. And as CNN allowed us to look back on the history of the time, and the people interviewed were able to articulate the significance and just the enormity of the loss, it's probably impossible for people who were not alive at the time to fully comprehend. There were very few news outlets. Magazines were very important. What was in magazines and covered by the news and by the magazines really formed the culture and society, the mindset, the priorities, the fashion even. We didn't have social media. We didn't have YouTube. I don't even think we had the internet. Certainly not as we know it today. Princess Diana, I believe her wedding was the most televised event in history, maybe, if not the most. I think it was first or second to the Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins Apollo 11 going to the moon. And as the people in CNN documentary on John Kennedy Jr. explained, at the time, he was probably one of the most famous people. I didn't fully maybe appreciate it. Maybe was just too surreal to wrap my head around. How significant they were, but I also think it's quite possible, highly likely. It's also why my father wanted me to relocate to Florida after the missing plane. He flew to Boston and insisted I return to Florida for my own safety. All the media outlets were calling, wanting to know what I was going to do with the film that I had produced in 1999 and postponed in July of 1999. I asked my dear friend Jeb Gilliam, who was also my assistant in putting the film together, and he's in the film version. He played Mr. Ogg. But I asked him to keep my name out of the media at the time, keep the project out of the media, and I'm sure, looking back, because he had previously worked as the press secretary for Congressman Joe Kennedy, he knew exactly who to ask that request of, and had the ability to make that happen. Again, looking back, many people were begging me not to postpone, including Jeb. But I really, truly didn't believe I should. At the time, I wanted the families to be able to have privacy and time to grieve, but I also truly didn't want my success my project's success, if you want to call it that, to be talked about in that same media cycle is such an enormous tragedy. We do still see what happens to the children of people who go through tragedies, because they're also in the news all the time still. Princess Diana's children, they carry that with them forever. All of the children who were just involved as victims in the school shooting, there are just not enough words to convey how deeply saddened the news makes me. The families, the loved ones. Again, I've spoken in other videos, I've written in many books, several tragedies I have endured. 2 friends randomly murdered. You don't forget those things. But I do truly hope if anybody watches these videos, it reaches people who need to hear from someone who's lived through painful loss. Grief does fade. Takes time, takes work. You will never forget your loved ones, and they will forever be with you, wanting you to live a life full of joy and love and peace. And please, please, let's find a way to move forward without the worldly pressures that compel people to feel the need to ruin their own life, but so many other innocent lives. Most of what compels people to take such drastic actions, whether it's paparazzi chasing people for a photograph or invading their privacy, or children picking up a gun or a knife to hurt other people. Most of what's driving that is simply an illusion, and the structures of our society are there meaning to protect us, not oppress us. And I know it is so hard to believe that when you're feeling oppressed. But that's maybe where my video on faith will have to pick up. Because like the internet is an invisible force, so is our faith. And it can transcend any material structure that you think is oppressing you. Please find a way to believe in peace and love, and tomorrow having possibilities for miracles that today seem impossible. Thank you.